they were cooked starting Friday night. I mean, Max Scherzer had 2 big starts at the end of the season and couldn't come through in either one of them. And again, this is a word of warning to paying players at his age the amount of money that you're paying them. I mean, I feel like, we talked about it all year long. It's going to be about October. It's going to be about October. It's going to be about October because they were good enough to make it to October, and they did. And they did have a 101-win season, and he had a opportunity in Atlanta to go win a game in Atlanta. Couldn't do it. Had an opportunity to start this thing off right on Friday night, and he got blasted. I mean, blasted. I'm like, this looks like a low-A pitcher going against a major league lineup. And it set the tone for what ultimately happened last night because Chris Bassett was horrific again last night. I mean, walking the bottom of the order, giving up a, 2-run signal to Aaron Nola. I mean, you're talking about guys. I mean, Josh Bell, was going to do something because he always did something against us with the Nationals. You knew Juan Soto was going to ultimately come through somewhere along the line, and he does against Diaz last night. The Mets hitters were swinging at pitches that were out of the strike zone. And quite frankly, I'm probably kind of with most Met fans this morning and, Met announcers, whatever you want to say. People have watched the Mets all year long. What they did to Joe Musgrove last night was embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not one of the people that agrees with what Buck did. I understand that, you're going to try to do whatever you can because your team is basically going right down the toilet. But to me, that made it 10 times worse. It really did. And I do agree with what Gary Cohen said in the postgame that if you're going to go and do that, you better be right about it. And they weren't right. And there's 2 reasons why, even this morning, there's still some Met fans out there saying that he was cheating. There's 2 reasons why I'll tell you that he wasn't. One, if he had any sort of sticky situation, like let's say he put something on his ears and then grabbed the rosin bag, like you've heard before, people use suntan oil or lotion and then grab the rosin bag and that creates some sticky substance. It would have been on his hands. There's no doubt about it. Would have been on his hands, and the umpires would have felt it. They would have felt the ball. They would have felt something sticky. The other thing is, too, and this is something that I thought last night and then was confirmed this morning when I watched a video from John Boy. John Boy went through every single pitch that this guy threw prior to being checked, and not once did he go to his ear. Not one time did he go to his ear to get a substance and then grab the rosin bag or anything, even when he got a new baseball, because that's the time that you would do it. Never went to his ear. So that just added another layer to the embarrassment, and I don't blame the Padres for mouthing back off to the dugout after that happened. All that did was embolden them even more.
Yeah, and so let's say he would have had the sticky stuff, and they would have thrown him out of the game. Yeah, it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
Sticky ball.
Right. Wouldn't have mattered. Like it was
4-0 at that point.
I mean, the whole thing was embarrassing, and the whole way the season ended from the sweep at home to the Cubs, the sweep at Atlanta, and then ultimately losing Friday night. Friday night set the tone. You want your Hall of Fame pitcher. Who's done great things for other players, other teams, and actually did some pretty good things this year for this team. And we thought he brought a different bulldog mentality to the dugout, along with Buck and along with Canna and along with Escobar and along with Bassett and Marte. And, I give Marte a lot of credit for hanging in there and showing up and playing.
I agree. I mean, I was all over him for taking this much time to get back, so I give him all the credit for stepping up. And he even said it prior to Game 1. He goes, listen, I got to fight through the pain because this moment is a big moment. I got to be there. And
he was there.
Hats off to him, yeah.
But, to me, it all started Friday night. It really did. I mean, we could talk about Jacob deGrom. He fought through some tough innings, and he grinded it out, and he gave us a winning performance. And that's what you want. You want a winning performance. But, Bassett got outdone by Musgrove, and, Scherzer got outdone by Yu Darvish. I mean, Scherzer was, I don't know how else to put it. He said last night, it was like a kick in the balls. Yeah, we all got kicked in the balls by your Friday night performance.
Yeah, I mean, and you still had the opportunity and momentum last night. But I will agree, because we were going into this series and into Friday night saying that in order for me to get the trust back, or for them to earn my trust back, I need to see them play well on Friday night. That's what I need.
The other thing, too, this whole discussion about possibly deGrom being held out of Game 2 and all that other crap. I mean, why are you even talking about that? Why is anybody in a Met uniform, Buck Showalter or anybody else, even talking about anything after Game 1?
The whole
discussion, and Look, I didn't mind him bringing in Diaz in the seventh inning, but then trotting him back out there in the eighth inning. I'm like, what are we doing? I mean, like, did we just lose our minds? See, this is what happens when the pressure gets to become so significant that all of a sudden players who are under that pressure start doing things that they're not accustomed to doing or haven't done all year long.
Yeah, I mean, I think
and that goes for the manager too, by the way.
Right. I think that the lineup, though, we did see peaks of this. We did see some bad omens with this offense in that Braves series. That's why I kept bringing it up, and you were yelling at me, and I understand we had to turn the page at some point. We did, but the fact that they played the way that they did in what essentially was a playoff series, and they couldn't hit and they couldn't pitch, made me think that things weren't going to go well once they got into real playoff series, and that happened. So we could say that they were doing things they didn't do all year long, but I mean that you could see the black clouds on the horizon as the season was ending in the way that they lost those games to the Atlanta Braves.
I'm just going to sit here and say, look, man, you pay a 39-year-old $43 million a year.
Yeah, but none of us had a problem with that at the time. I don't want to go back and say there was a bad signing.
I'm not saying it was a bad signing. What I'm saying is this is a caution. This is what happens. This is, he's not the player that he once was. And, last year he got arm fatigue with the Dodgers.
Yeah, he had the dead arm. Yeah, I mean.
It just happens. He's a human being like the rest of us. I mean, at one point in time this season, and in many points in his career, he was a spectacular pitcher. I don't know. I don't know if there's something wrong with him again.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's hurt again. I have no idea. You remember he spent, 2 stints on the IL this year? I mean, but again, this is what it's all about. Like you want – that guy's got to give you a $43 million, performance. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, but think about this. This is what, when he came back from the IL, and he was there for his second stint. He came back and he pitched against the Brewers. That first start back where he had the perfect game going.
Remember that? Him out. Yes.
Right. So he had the perfect game going. Then after that, he pitched out in Oakland in that big blowout win that they had. And he went 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run. So it's not like he was fatigued or falling apart in those 2 starts. Where he fell apart was against the Braves and the Padres. So it's not like we were watching him trend down. When he came back off the IL, he was great in back-to-back starts.
Then you explain those 2 performances.
I can't. That's the worst part about it. Well, I can't do it.
He's the guy that set the tone, man.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
The Friday night of the Cubs series, I went back and looked at this because I heard Evan talking about it, and I think it was Evan. And he was right because I think Bassett started that Cubs series, and it was an awful start for Bassett, I believe. And so all these guys have had their opportunities to be the shutdown guy, to outpitch the other guy that's pitching against you, and in all facets, with the exception of DeGrom maybe on Saturday night. These guys failed in the biggest of moments.
No, they did, but the entire team did. I mean, let's not forget that even though Chris Bassett didn't get the job done last night, and you're down 2-0 at the drop of a hat, it felt like, but they had 1 hit the entire night. That's the problem. I mean, they got their asses kicked Friday night, both sides, everything, asses kicked on Sunday. I mean, they had 1 hit. I mean, that's just pathetic. And this was an offense, by the way, we had talked about the entire year that was going to translate to the postseason. Why? Because they don't live and die on the home run. They can manufacture runs other ways. They could do a hit and run. They're a team that base hits, and they'll single you to death if they need to. And they just completely disappeared. And Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso gave you a little bit of a taste on Saturday, but for the most part in this series, when you needed them, they were not there in the 2 losses. Nobody was there. So they obviously are going to go into this offseason with a lot of question marks. It was Nimmo coming back. Is Diaz coming back? Is DeGrom coming back? Is Bassett coming back? But, I mean, this lineup is just, especially when you look over at the other side. Now, I know that they had underachieved the Padres for many, many months after the trade deadline. But, they've got, real offensive horsepower. And, oh, by the way, the guys at the bottom of the lineup, which seemingly the Mets can never get any production from, those were the guys that were killing the Mets. Trent Grisham, for Christ's sakes, who hit a 184 in the regular season, was out there like Albert Pujols in his prime this weekend. It's pathetic. It's just pathetic. 101 win season, right down the tubes. You cannot waste these type of years. They don't happen every year in Mets history, and they completely wasted it and fell apart in the biggest games. And it's just it's so discouraging.
I'll tell you one, they're going to have a really interesting offseason.
Yeah.
Rebuilding this team and trying to figure out who to pay, who not to pay. And, you know, the problem that I don't see Bassett being here because I don't think his personality is going to lend itself to
basically told you so before his start.
Yeah, because he doesn't like this. He's not big on all the criticism and everything else, and the criticism is loud. But all I want him to do is look across the BQE or whatever over at Aaron Judge and look how you can become beloved if you perform. Yeah, that's the point. Like if you perform like Eli Manning, if you perform, you're going to be loved here. And if you're loved here, then basically you're good. You're set as gold, like Piazza is.
Yeah, I mean,
like Tom Seaver was.
Sure. I mean, I trusted, and Chris Bassett will never be those guys. But no. I mean, I trusted Chris Bassett in the Braves series, and I actually trusted him last night going into the game. I mean, he had earned my trust throughout the year. He'd been their most consistent pitcher, and just like Max Scherzer, when it really counted, they came up as small as possible. So I don't know.
The problem for Chris Bassett is he also said, we come right at you. We're not backing down from anyone. And that was from early on in the season.
Yeah, it was like in April, yeah.
Yeah, and, he was not to walk how many times was Kim on base?
Yeah, it was the bottom of the order. Like I was talking about. I mean, those guys were unbelievable for the Padres. And now we sit here. We should have been, if they had won the division. I'm sorry to go back at this, but it's the truth. We should have been sitting here getting ready for the Mets and Phillies, who they had dominated the entire year, for a chance to go to the NLCS. And instead, the team is out because they blew it against the Braves in that series. And now you got two teams. You led the NL East the entire year, whatever the crazy number was, 174 days out of 181 or whatever it was. You were in first place the entire year. Should have been your division. Not only did you not win the division, but now there's two teams in your division that are deeper in the playoffs than you are. It's awful. Just a brutal year. I don't care how many games you went to, how many special moments, walk-offs, this, that, whatever. It's all gone. It's all evaporated. And this is what you'll remember. This is now, once again, as I said many times last year, or this year and last week rather, that this is another negative reference point for a Mets fan that's my age that didn't remember 1986 because he was 4 years old.
Be true. I want you to be honest with me now.
Yeah.
Soto gets the hit off of Diaz, knocks into 2 runs. Did you turn the TV off?
Yes, 100%. I could tell you a text message. 6-0. I went to bed. 6-0. I texted the head flunky, who's the most positive Met fan in the world.
Yeah.
I'll read you the exact text message. I said, good night. I will talk to you tomorrow. He said, stay for this half inning. They're going to get 3 here. And I said, ha, 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 talk to you tomorrow. I'm going to bed.
Right.
There it is. Right there. Receipts. I don't care.
I got that. You got a receipt there. That's a receipt.
I got a receipt. Right to sleep.
I just want to say the same thing. I flipped over to the Bengals and the Ravens.
Yep.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.